Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimers Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimers Beer House. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back. I was loud, wasn't it?
Man, I'm going to turn you down. Like the last two shows, you blow my ears off.
Merle, what is going on? Welcome back to Strong Dads. We're excited to be here. New year, new us, Strong Dads. We're living on 2022. Here we come.
Living on the edge.
I like it. How you doing today?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Yep, doing pretty good. Man, I love our topic today.
Oh, boy.
This is going to be good.
It's a good way to start the year, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it comes out through the show. You can never really see how the show is going to end by the end.
Especially with us. You never know where
you don't know what direction you're going to go. Hey, bring it back on the track. Come on.
5-minute show or a 5-hour show. Yeah. We could go either way.
All right. So let's talk. How are you doing? You doing okay?
I'm great.
Yeah. I'm back into work mode. Kids are back to school. They went back yesterday, so yeah. My kiddos went back to school today officially, and man, just on Monday this week, they started talking about potentially not going back because of COVID. And
no,
you're praying.
You're going back.
Praying hard. You're going back. That parking lot is going to be a long 8 hours. That you're going to sit.
How many days? And we actually did a whole show on this. How many days was it into their Christmas break where it was Daddy on board?
It didn't really happen too much because my daughter's got her driver's license. Oh. And so she was able to find the release valve.
Okay.
Like she was making stupid trips all over. Oh, I need to go down the store and get, and I get it, it was fine. So, got her a new car. Her car laid
it blew up, didn't it?
Yeah, it blew. So bought her a little Mini Cooper. Or I shouldn't say I bought her. So that's not how we roll. I mean, we collaboratively with her money and our money came together, and she got a Mini Cooper. I believe I got a great deal on this.
I'm gonna have to show her the Italian Job.
We came home that night. We watched the Italian Job, and she has just got this big cheesy grin. Like I said, girl, don't get any ideas. Like you're gonna go through buildings and downstairs and stuff like that. But it is fun. It's like a go-kart.
That's pretty cool.
Thing just flies around. So
that's cool.
So we'll hopefully keep that thing on the road. All right, so let's get into what we're doing. Right, I love this topic today. Okay, so I think what we're going to talk about today, Kyle, as you and I were talking before the show, we're going to kind of set up a series here.
Yeah,
and it's really going to be a series about the role of being a defender, a protector of the things that we need to protect. And we've done shows somewhat similar, but we're going to have a little bit of a different view on some of this today. So talk a little bit about the part of your job that you don't like as a fireman.
That I don't like?
That you don't like.
I was going to say something. Anyways, the part of my job, because I have shared on this, I love firefighting.
Yeah, you're messed up. He loves to fight fire.
I love to fight.
Like I don't know that he's ever started fires on purpose.
I have for sure never done that.
But
here's the example I always say. So like a garbage man, right? When he shows up to a house, if there's no garbage, he doesn't have a job, right?
I don't think that upsets him.
If there's an insurance agency and nobody ever wants to buy insurance, then they don't have a job, right? They like to do that. So for me, I love fighting fire. That is what it drives me.
Do you understand that there's damage from fires? Do you understand that?
Jenny always tells me, Kyle, that is someone's property, right?
Right, yeah.
Here's my caveat to that. There's fires that are going to happen regardless if I'm there or not. So if they're going to happen, I want to be there.
You want to be there. You're in the trenches.
So the one part of my job, so the fire service is the only profession that is trying to put themselves out of business because the number one part of our job is prevention.
Right.
We are supposed to... where I work, everyone is also a fire inspector. Mm-hmm. So we go into these buildings beforehand, before they catch fire, and we tell them the things that are flammable containers, outlets, are the stack full of the connections. Mm-hmm. We check emergency lightings, make sure that's all appropriate. They have to have, if it's depending on what the business is, they can only have a certain number of people inside there. So all these things for prevention to ensure that there is no fire. So that is my least favorite part about my job, but I know it is a very valuable part. So
yeah, in the big picture, prevention is more important than you putting out the fire, right?
Correct. Yes.
I mean, so let's not even let the fire start. So
Yes.
it's better to have Kyle in the corner crying because he doesn't have anything to do than everybody else having to pay a lot of money because he does have something to do.
Well, because the EMS runs are always going to be there, so it doesn't matter if I stop every fire out there. EMS runs are still there.
You still have purpose.
EMS is not my favorite thing.
You don't like that.
I like to fight fire.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. So the idea here is going to be a slant towards prevention on some of the defense sort of things.
Yep.
And so I came kind of a little bit to this idea that about 15 years ago, when, I don't know, like we started to have an upheaval of discipline issues going on in the school. And because there was liability issues and stuff like that, we had to, especially in the position that I was in, we had to start getting trained for proper interaction, self-defense, release and holds and things like that with students. And that the first few years of training, man, it was all about like handholds and escapes, and it was very physical, okay, which I totally was cool with. I mean, you know, even though you don't want to use that, it's like, this is good to know, okay? Yep. And then they started to realize that what was happening was because that was the emphasis in the training, people in my positions were quickly going to that physical side of things. They'd walk into a room and see a kid misbehaving, and right away they'd like thump the kid and put him on the floor. And it's like, okay, like there's probably, we don't need to go from 0 to 100 quite that fast.
Yep.
Right. And so then they started coming back and saying, all right, we need to start using de-escalation content. And so they start bringing that content back in and really teaching us how to de-escalate and using skills more with the communication, talk, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And because at the end of the day, people get hurt when it goes to the extreme, whether it's fires or whether it's fights or whatever. It just starts to cost a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that makes me think of, I mean, if you were to take a SWAT standoff, that type of scenario, you know, obviously the police department and the SWATs, you know, they train on those circumstances, and one of the first things they do is they bring in a negotiator, right?
Right.
And they make that phone call, because if the cops were, you know, the SWAT teams were to raid that building, whatever, it's gonna escalate very, very quickly, right? So the first attempt is always to do the de-escalation, to have that conversation. Hey, you know, to talk to them, and you again, these are negotiators. That's what they do for a living, right? So, but it's been that training over time that those negotiators have trained on the things to say and the way in which to hopefully prevent a terrible situation from happening. I think that's the same. As we get into kind of this little series, you know, you and I are going to be guests on our own show, I think.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. Apparently, we're the experts.
We're the experts.
So.
Well, we'll pull into different things that we do have a little bit of practice in. So let's thank a couple folks that come behind and surround us with a little financial support. Kyle, you want to start us off in that, bro?
For sure, yeah. Strong Dads, we'd like to thank the Crimers Beer House, located on 128. Go check them out. It's great setting, incredible food. Let Mark know we sent you down there. Thanks so much for the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. Really do appreciate it.
All right. Also want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for joining us in with another year of support. And so we want to thank Casey for coming alongside of us and supporting not just Rock Solid Radio, Rock Solid Families, but also Strong Dads. So they're a big supporter of most all the work that we do. So we want to thank Casey. So go out there and visit Casey's Outdoor Solutions to meet any of your landscaping or gift needs.
Awesome.
Okay. So, can you think of a person who just has a knack for throwing gas on a fire when it comes to volatile people? Right? So today, let's go down that road of like emotional people, argumentative people, fighting type people. Can you think of somebody that has just got a knack? You're like, oh no, so-and-so just walked in the room. It's getting ready to get messy. No.
I'm kidding.
He pointed to me. Those of you, are you serious? Like,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Merle. You are.
We're gonna fight when this is over.
No, let's think. I'm thinking of some I'll think of a famous person.
Oh no.
I think he might have been elected as a president
Oh, no.
at some point in the history of our country.
Let me guess.
Are
you talking about the Donald?
Some people say he has orange hair. I wouldn't say that.
So that is funny.
Yes.
That's funny. So yeah,
Donald Trump. I think he is a great example of this. Like him, hate him,
like him,
indifferent
hate
about
him, like his policy, hate his policy. You know, sitting from the chair that I sit in with trying to always help de-escalating situations and part of coaching and counseling that I do on a daily basis. Holy cow, you could not work harder at throwing gas on fire. And it was like, oh no, this is not going to go well, you know, and you would watch how he did that. And, you know, so much of what we saw him doing just ended up creating a lot more damage than it needed to for the fact of getting the job done. Right. And so, that's a,
you know, I also think, I mean, I'm a firm believer, and you are a product of your environment. And when it comes to someone like Donald Trump, he, you know, from the New York landscape, part of it, again, not to the extreme that he took it, but sometimes it does that landscape, to the best that I know of it. I mean, I'm not from that. I've only visited a couple of times, but to the best I know, sometimes it does require a little grit and nitty gritty. You know, sometimes there is some aspects of who Donald Trump is that were required, but man, he took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think there's no question about it. The idea that you think that whatever has worked for you in the past is going to be what you bring into the future. Yeah. So like, hey, in the past, if I've been the first to throw down the punch first and it's worked for me, then that becomes kind of how I go about things. But I think in the arena that he jumped into on the bigger stage of politics, it just, people loved him or hated him. And, you know, it just would be interesting to see, had he just been able to tame the tongue to get off the Twitter and the social media, like if somebody just had a permanent COVID mask on him, if he would still be in office, you know, I don't know, just because it is so volatile that way.
Well, and the crazy thing is, so I had an opportunity to actually come encounter with some of the Secret Service guys during the election season. You know, the vice presidents were making their rounds, and the Democratic vice president came to Dayton, and I had an opportunity to work. You know, we had to work the event, and I talking to some of the Social Security or Secret Service. Did I say Social Security thing?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Secret Service guys, and they talked about just what a good dude he is outside of the camera. And it's crazy that all of a sudden the camera gets turned on, or he sits behind a keyboard, and then he just like again putting you know gas on this fire. It's like, bro, just settle down for a second. Like sometimes just not saying anything is good enough. Right? You don't always have to be the person who's got to say something.
Amen, man. That is so true. Okay, so well, we didn't really mean to go
Donald Trump. You know what? At the end of the day,
you just got showtime with the Strong Dads.
Yeah, come on, the Strong Dads. We'd love to have you on our show.
Oh, I don't know, man. Get our house burnt down. All right, so let's go the other way. Can you think of somebody who just brings a calm with them? Like anywhere they go, you just see a sense of calm that comes out. Let me grab this one. I have someone that comes to mind.
All right,
okay. Tony Dungy. Remember Tony Dungy?
Yeah, Indianapolis Colts.
Indianapolis Colts.
Our coach.
I have read his book. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. I've followed him a bit. Amazing. You see so many guys in his position, because I think a lot of the guys in his position seem to somehow get traction by banging their fist or yelling loud and just sort of making their presence an authoritarian presence. And Tony is just, you almost want to say, come on, Tony, just yell once, just yell. And he never, I mean, to my knowledge, that wasn't his approach at all. And he would just walk in and everybody just wanted to hear him speak because it was going to be calming. It was going to be just solid, right? It was going to be confident. And it was just a totally different air. You know, and so that's what comes to mind when I see somebody like him. Like, wow, that dude he brings the temperature down instantly.
What I was thinking of someone, I immediately thought of my captain, Captain Cron, Dayton Fire Department. Shout out.
There you go.
My captain, I swear, this man has never gotten worked up inside of a fire, which as someone who works for him is really good for me, right? Because
Right.
the people around him, like it could be a really, one thing that comes to mind that I was on a run with him. We're on the front porch and we're kind of tearing down some of the on the porch roof. We're tearing some of the ceiling, the ceiling and the soffits and so on and so forth. Well, the massive porch roof had become so weak that it was getting ready to collapse, and I was under this said porch roof, and I remember Captain Cron said, "Hey Kyle, probably shouldn't be under there," and Merle, I'm not joking. 2 seconds later, I jumped off the porch and that sucker came collapsing. I'm like,
wow.
Cap, that would be a time you could scream at me. Kyle, you got to get worked up for me, Cap. But he just never, ever, he's just calm, cool, collected at all times. I'm like,
Maybe he really didn't care whether you got out from under there.
it would have crushed me like a pancake, Merle. I'm talking thousands and thousands of pounds. It would have been bad news.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, but that's why they're in the position they're in, right?
Absolutely.
Because they know how to manage that scene. So,
Yep.
so what we're going to move into is the idea of how do you help defend by being a little bit on the proactive side, whether we're dealing with a hot situation, an emotional situation, whether it be with your boss, your wife, a peer, a family member, your own kids. Like, these are critical things that you're going to be able to use in any portion of your life. And some of you will get it quickly because it's more natural to your personality. Others, the Donald Trumps of the world, right, who have basically shoot first and ask questions later. If that's how you're wired, listen, there's a place for that, but you got to learn to manage it if you want better outcomes. And so let's talk a little bit about how we can help you strong dads out there really get a better grip on getting better outcomes during emotional situations. Okay,
I think that is the first point, man. Like you have to do a little bit of self-evaluation and realize the emotions that can go into, situations, whether that's an argument with your wife, whether that's disciplining your kids, whether that's someone, at your place of employment where you have a disagreement with a coworker. I think recognizing your emotions and the triggers in which sometimes bring out the worst in your emotions, because obviously, similar to Donald Trump, that's something he just, for whatever reason, doesn't display very well, that he can't set emotions aside. We talk all the time about how the idea when your emotions get the best of you, you say things, you think a certain way, you're unable, everything becomes kind of blurry and you're unable to really take a step back and realize, all right, the kind of putting things in perspective. And I think when your emotions get involved and they're high emotions, you have a tendency to, forget about any preventative maintenance that you might have put in place, and you just jump right to, escalating the situation versus de-escalating.
Right. So first thing in trying to help us move through these things, okay? The first thing is I need to learn to recognize emotions. So in order for me to do that, one, I have to recognize my own, but I have to recognize it in other people. So, again, I'm not the psychiatrist for Donald Trump, but I would suggest that one of his challenges in life is that he has a hard time seeing through other people's eyes. He's very self-focused, self-absorbed, and so whatever's on his mind is the prevalent thing. All right.
Yep.
And so, like a good negotiator in a hostage situation, they have to get out of their own head. I mean, they have an end goal in mind, but they have to get out of their own head, and they have to think, what's going on inside of that guy's head? All right. What's the emotional state of their mind? And so our first deal, if we're going to help you guys as strong dads, is when you start to recognize emotion, quickly put your own emotions in check, right? So if I walk in the house and I see that my wife is not in a good mood, right? If I'm going to spend my time thinking about my emotions, chances are I'm going to put gas on a fire by how I'm going to interact with her. But instead, if I can come in and I can get the temperature of the room or the emotion, if I can monitor that just in an instant, I can quickly go, what's going on with them, all right? And so the second part of that is once I recognize that somebody's emotionally charged, I do want to check in, okay? Like I want to check in with a very simple something like, hey, okay, so what's going on? What's on your mind? when I would work with kids and I would be called down to a classroom and the kid was basically throwing computers and chairs all over the place, and we would evacuate the room, get all the other kids out. My first thing would be to come in that room and just say, okay, tell me what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean they'd sit down right away to you and start telling you what's going on. They might cuss you out and yell at you and throw a desk at you. But you've opened the door to them not having to defend themselves, but an opportunity to talk out some of that emotion. Okay?
Yeah, that's good stuff. It started making me think, Merle, and when we talk about this, this is something we talk all the time in the fire service about, reverting back to our training and where we have, using experience as a teaching tool. Man, if you have been in countless arguments with your wife and every single argument ends with week-long silent treatment and week-long not talking to each other, man, like revert back to the first year, the first couple of days of marriage, when you were talking, when you were communicating. Like, I think there's so much good that comes back from reverting back to what was it about your wife that that made that connection, right? So, like in the middle of a fire, when things just aren't going good, I revert back to my training. I revert back to the things that I know do work.
Right.
And those are the things that I fall back on. And, again, there's going to be times where sometimes your original training, that's where just being, controlling your emotions and realizing, taking a step back and then being able to kind of put things in place. But I think, when you start to evaluate and start to look at those times when emotions are high, there's times when there are arguments, there are times when, again, a coworker, you and a coworker are having a disagreement. Like, if you can look back at all the other times that has happened and you're just doing the same thing over and over and it's not working, right? There is no de-escalation at that point. I think we need to take a step back and go back to the beginning, go back to when you first got hired, when you first got married, like what worked at that time. And I'm sure that there's something from that we can draw from to use in a later time.
Well, yeah, we definitely want to always know like what was working when the sun was shining, right?
Sure.
When
exactly.
a day was good,
Yep.
What works then, okay? But if we're in that emotional time and again, this is all part of the training, right? This is the prevention, and that's why we're talking this show right now. Like, okay, what am I going to do? Like you said, like I need to be mindful about how I've handled situations in the past that made it successful versus blowing up on me. So the next thing I want to do after I recognize this emotion, whether it's my wife, my boss, my kids, all right, I'm going to ask them, okay, like what's going on, that kind of thing. And then I use this kind of phrase. Okay, so I'm trying to understand you, right? Here's what we tend to do. We tend to plead our case. You shouldn't be doing this. You're wrong. This is, we set them back on their heels, okay, and they get a defensive posture. So instead to say, okay, listen, I'm here, all right? I'm trying to understand you. Help me understand you, okay? Because that doesn't mean my end game has changed, all right? At the end of this, I have in my mind that I want to get a level of resolution, okay? I am not going to compromise my values, okay? But I want to also know that there are going to be other ways to kind of soften this up just a little bit to take the edge off so that I can get to the end game, all right? So I'm going to just inquire, hey, help me understand you, okay? All right? After that, I'm going to take a minute and just say, hey, what can I do for you? Right. So a lot of times when you see negotiation situations for like hostage negotiations, they'll say stuff like, what can I get you a drink?
Yep.
Can I get you, do you need a jacket? Do you need a coat?
Yep.
So you're taking care of important needs that they might have. When somebody's all fired up, okay, they're starting to get uncomfortable. Physically, they get uncomfortable. They either get hot, hey, let's open a window and just get some air in here. Or, hey, let me get you a water. Let me get you a Coke, all right?
Yep.
You're just trying to get a level of comfort, and you're tending to their emotion. You're not adding to it, all right? You're tending to it so that it can calm itself down.
And then the flip side of that, when you do ask that question, because there's so much good that comes from you at that point, if your blood pressure is whatever and you ask that question, there's naturally going to be a dip right away, right? There's going to be that calming sense. Okay, But the problem is, and I know for myself, this I'll ask questions like that, but then I'll be real quick to make a response. Well, if you did this, okay, so what can help you in this situation? Help me understand, and then I'll try and make a suggestion where I think there's so much good about just listening. Just
Right.
allow that person to vent, and I think when you're able to take a step back and listen versus actually speaking, that's when I really do think you can set your emotions back. You can be like, okay, the emotions are here. Obviously, you're very worked up, but listening and not thinking about what you're going to say next, but actually listening, actually hearing what they're saying gives you the opportunity to hopefully calm yourself down so that way you can de-escalate the situation.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point of just always keeping the finger on your own pulse to make sure that you're staying in check.
Taking care of what you can take care of.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in a situation and somebody's, aggressive and they're coming at you, whether it's with words or physical, you can try to stay calm. But I know I've been kicked at, spit at, punched. When you get punched in the face, it's real tough to just sit there and go, now, how can I help you? Right. But you also, through training and practice, I know that I don't take that personally.
Yep.
Right, because that is the emotional rage inside of them, and especially in the case of when you have a level of power or authority naturally over someone, you are just their quick release button. Right, you just happen to be in the wrong place.
Yep.
All right, so don't take it. You're not all that important. You could literally take you out, and if somebody else came in and said the exact same thing, they would get punched too.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I also think when you are asking those questions to try and de-escalate the situation, know that the other person that you're in an emotional state with is also reading you. And I think a lot of times your posture says a lot about you, man. I remember one of the first things they teach you in EMT school is to get down at the same level as the patient, to let them know that you are not standing over top of them, you are no better than them, that you're just someone here to try and help. And I think your posture can say a lot. If you're sitting there and you got your hands crossed and across your chest and you're breathing heavy and oh yeah, you're just shaking your head and again not really hearing what the person's saying. You might be listening but not actually hearing. I think your posture and your demeanor really can again just de-escalate the whole entire situation.
Perfect segue into that next part, right? Like how I present is constantly needs to be on my mind as the person who's trying to de-escalate.
Yep.
Squaring my shoulders with theirs is a defensive posture. Okay, like bring it on. All right, and so whether I even want to project that or not, the idea that I square up with them is something that makes them feel like, oh, this guy is trying to approach me, right? So we actually, even whether it's our wife or anyone, like if I go to my wife and she's upset and I come at her squared up, looking her dead in the eyes, that is a pretty confrontational look and feel, okay? But if I can just turn off to the side and glance my eyes back and forth, I don't need to like stay burning holes in her, okay? I can start to get her to knock down her level of emotion, okay? So posture is important. Voice tone.
Absolutely.
Right? Voice tone. If I feel like I have to come out with force in my voice, that's just showing my own fear, right? I'm not here to argue with you.
Yep.
I don't need to do that. I'm not going to go down that road,
Yep.
right? Have you ever tried to argue with somebody who won't argue back with you? It's you quickly go, this is like ridiculous. I'm yelling and no one's yelling back.
Yep.
Right.
And we talk, not to keep using my job as an example, but I think there is something here. We say all the time that the people inside of a fire who are screaming and yelling are not confident in themselves.
Yeah.
They are trying to bark orders and yell at the fire to go out versus, again, reverting back to the training. So I think if you're in the midst of an argument, again, just like you were saying, Merle, I think it's so true. Keeping a level head about yourself. And again, this is very, very difficult, especially if this has not been your norm, that this is not something that you're used to doing. Man, just if you were in the situation and your spouse is yelling, man, I think just, hey, can we turn it down a notch? And you, again, having the mindset to actually control your own voice and hey, can we just turn it down just a little bit? I'm fine with this discussion we're having, but the discussion is quickly turning into a pretty significant argument by the tone of our voice. And I think just turning the dial down just a little bit, having the confidence, having the ability to, again, de-escalate a little bit.
Yeah. Once I start to get into those areas, okay, I'm going to probe a little bit deeper with this person. In previous shows, we've talked about the the emotional systems that everybody has, right? And there are certain things that we have to have in place in order for us to feel stable. And in large part, when we're talking about people who are getting angry, all right, and emotional that way, a lot of it is feeling like they're losing control, feeling like they're being disrespected, like trust has been broken. And so these are some of the primary areas. You know, the kid might be yelling and screaming, calling you names, but when you boil it down a little bit, you realize that they feel like somebody's disrespecting them. What did so-and-so say to you that got you so upset? Right? What, and in the case of your spouse, what do you feel like I'm doing or that is happening here that's making you uncomfortable? Okay. And because they may not even be able to put the words to why their fear is coming out of their mind and that anger.
Sure.
But I need to help them with that. Okay.
That's good stuff. Yeah. I mean, I hope, you know, as we're talking here, I hope that the message is not coming across that getting angry is wrong. Like,
right.
I think at the end of the day, right, we are human. We do have emotions involved. You know, when we look at at Scripture, man, there are parts in Scripture where it tells you can be angry. It's the actions that you do afterwards. That's when the sin comes in. That's when the escalation of things. I mean, you absolutely, there are going to be emotions involved with everything we do. I hope so, right?
Yeah.
But it's the way in which we respond. That's when we turn the anger into action. That's when that becomes that sin.
Yeah. In this situation, we're thinking about outcomes. Yep. What kind of outcome? What's the best outcome that I can come out with? If the outcome is that my wife and I don't talk for the next 2 weeks, if the outcome is that I say or she says something that's hurtful, that causes a wound that's going to hurt for a long time, if the outcome is divorce, you know, these are the outcomes that, wait, is this really where we want to go? Yep. So if the outcome is, hey, I want to have in my mind how I restore, how I reconcile, how I get a relationship back. If that's what's in my mind, then I have to go to I can't bring gas to the fire. Yeah. I have to bring something that quenches it, that soothes it. And oftentimes that's nothing magic. That is just something that can be practiced. You know, you have a Tony Dungy who is of probably his personality. I've never, ever heard of him being like an erratic, crazy sort of tempered guy. So he's wired that way. That would be what I would think of as his gift. And I don't think that Donald Trump goes in the mirror every day and practices being volatile. Okay. Right. I think he's wired that way. But when we start to practice, like, okay, what kind of outcomes do I want? And I think if I go back to Donald Trump, at the end of the day, if I looked at him now and said, what outcome did you want? I don't know that he'd be totally happy with the outcome he just got. Yep. Okay. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking at the outcome, and then I'm going to basically reverse engineer in terms of how I'm going to behave in that emotional situation.
Man, the outcome made me think. I just recently was talking to my brother about an issue that I was having, and I wanted to bring that issue to the person that I had a little disagreement with. And my brother made a great point. Like, before you go into these conversations, these conversations that could escalate and could bring a lot of emotions, have a goal in mind. What is the reason for going into that argument or that discussion? Right. Is it because you want to change their mind? Because realistically, that's probably, depending on what the situation is or depending on what the circumstances are, probably not going to happen, because people are who they are, and you're not asking people to change. So if the goal going into that is to try and change their mind, maybe take a step back. If the goal is just to let them know where you're coming from, I think there's value in that. You know, so I think taking a step back before you enter into a confrontation and actually say, what is the end goal here? What is why am I going to enter into this? Because something that, you know, I think we've already said it once. I mean, something that Donald Trump doesn't do is just be quiet for a second. Like, your words, you don't always have to have something to say. Like, sometimes just not saying anything is powerful enough.
You don't change people's minds. They change their own minds. You can just add the fertilizer and the environment and the culture for that to happen, or you can damage it. Okay. And so that whole idea of, if your goal is to sit down at this table and change minds, I don't want to be preaching and yelling at the camera here. This is what you got to start to do, right? Like, no, I mean, I want to be suggestive in the idea of, hey, consider this, because when it becomes your idea, you will lock in and go, yeah, that makes sense to me. And you will have changed your own mind. Okay. All right. So hopefully And the start of us learning how to defend one of these sort of situations of being emotional and volatile and argumentative, whether you're talking somebody off of the cliff or whether you're calming down one of your kids who's all fired up or restoring a relationship with a coworker. Hopefully this stuff made sense to you, that you can start to look into it a little bit more and really do the practice. Find out where you're not very good in these things. Like if you have a knee-jerk reaction on yelling out or whatever, okay, that's the first thing that I want to just focus on. Okay, shut that down, or let's alter that a little bit, because I want to think, what outcome is that probably going to get me?
Yep. I love it. Yeah, this is, again, setting up for a little thing we're doing here. We're going to have Merle going to talk about, the marriage and keeping, the preventative things we can do in our marriage to hopefully, again, just like you were saying, avoid the divorce. I guess I'm going to be a guest on home defense and what can we do to set our home up for success, the defending those type of, situations that can come. So I think this is a good.
Are you going to teach us how to shoot a gun and stuff like that? Is that what you're going to do?
No. I can tell you how I shoot it. I don't know if that's like the proper way. But anyways, yeah, I hope you guys are really enjoying. Man, come alongside of us for this ride, 2022. Really excited for things going on, whether it be with Strong Dads or Rock Solid Families. There's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Come alongside of us. Make 2022 the best year we've had. Not just with maybe financial donations, but come alongside of us. Pray for us, man. We come up with topics. Put it in the comment section. Email Merle and Linda at Rock Solid Families. Let them know things that you guys are dealing with, because this show at the end of the day means nothing if you guys aren't getting something from it. So man, come alongside of us for this journey, because Merle and I are just we just try and figure this thing out along with you guys. We're no different than you. We just happen to have a little bit of a different platform to talk about some of this stuff. So come alongside of us. When you do listen to our shows, share the heck out of them, because that's the best way. The only way our message is getting out there is the word of mouth. I think there's good message. We have quite a bit of a Rolodex of shows that you can use, in your discussions at your place of work. If you're discussing something with another dad and they've had a struggle that you've heard us talk about, man, share our show with them. Let's get the word out there that we are trying to change the idea of what a dad looks like in America.
Good stuff. Yeah. So I'll put a plug in too for our Strong Dads. So Strong Dads is a Saturday morning workout. Where we start at 8 a.m., end at 9:30, do a 45-minute workout, followed by a 45-minute talk, discussion, study. A lot of it is sometimes related to the shows that we do here. But man, that's just a great group of guys. These guys range in age from 25 to 75. And it's really cool to have that variety in age, because you've got guys who've already been dads to guys who are just starting and we have a lot of fun. A lot of ornery that goes on there. That's good stuff. I enjoy that. But so that's you can go to our website, rocksolidfamilies.org, and you can see all the different activities, seminars, workshops, workouts that we're doing. So come join us.
I love it.
All right, sign us up. Get us out of here, man.
All right.
Come on. I'm going to blow up. I'm ready to be done.
Thanks so much for Kramer's Beer House, Casey Outdoor Solution. Thanks for coming alongside of us. Really do appreciate you. And go out there and be some strong dads.
Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.